All right, my friends, welcome back. This is going to be part six. Part six of my presentation of the microscopic world. I almost said the flood in Noah's Ark. So I had over 120. I said I had 124 of them, 124. And so it's in my brain. And so, but we are going to continue on with this. And in this one here, we're going to start talking about the cell. The cell. If you notice on the screen here, this, of course, is chalkboard time with Donnie. And so for those of you that don't know, back when I was a Sunday school teacher for little kids, 4 and 5 year olds, I think that's what Sandra and I, we used to teach 4 and 5 year olds. And they had a chalkboard in there. And so those kids used to always love for me to get on the chalkboard, and anything I was talking about, I'd use that chalkboard. And they'd love to see my little funny drawings and stuff like that. So I would try to illustrate at least what I was talking about by the chalkboard. And that got their attention. And I tell you what, guys, you take note of this. Visual learning, I don't care what age your student is or who you're talking to, visual aid is always good to use. It grabs the attention. That's the reason television and smartphones and video games grab people's attention so well. And so it grabs it. It grabs that mind, and they can sit there and watch something for hours and hours and hours. So a good visual aid is good in learning. It assists with learning. And so I found that out while doing that. And that's the reason why I try to use as much visual aid as possible. And so, but we're going to talk about molecular biology. And now molecular is, you take it down when you're defining it, it's molecule, and you take it down from there. It's a group of atoms bound tightly together by strong chemical bonds. Now, a water molecule has 1 oxygen and 2 hydrogen atoms. And so that's why that right there is what a water molecule would look like. Now, biology means life and knowledge. And so when you split it up, bios, which is life, and ology is what knowledge would be. So it's life knowledge. Life knowledge is what that is. It involves the study of molecular building blocks of life. So when you put the two together, molecular biology involves the study of molecular building blocks of life, such as nucleic acids and proteins. Now, let's talk about what people call the simple cell. Is it really that simple, guys? The cellular cell theory, all living things are composed of cells. The cell is the basic unit of structure and organization in all life. All cells come from pre-existing cells. And so that gentleman down there is Rudolf Virchow, 1821 to 1902, a major contributor to the theory and is considered to be the father of pathology. He made the last tenet with the Latin phrase omnis cellula el cellula, all cells from cells. He also was an anti-Darwinian, so he did not like evolution. Excuse me. Pathology, the part of medicine which explains the nature of diseases. Now, this is another gentleman right here, Michael J. Behe, professor of biochemistry at Lehigh University. This is what he says, at the very basis of life, where molecules and cells run the show, we've discovered machines. Did you see what he said? We've discovered machines, literally molecular machines. There are little molecular trucks that carry supplies to one end of the cell to another. There are machines which capture the energy of the sunlight and turn it into energy. Now, this is a gentleman called Robert Hooke. 1635 to 1703. He had an interest in mechanics and drawing which led to the development of a compound microscope and a book entitled Micrographia in 1665. And that is one of his drawings right there. And Robert's drawing of a cork cells under a cork cells under a microscope. That's over to the left. And actual cork cells under a microscope to the right. That's what they look like. He was the first to coin the term cell. After observing the cells of a cork, he got the name cell from the similar appearance of that of monk cells. Now, this is what a monk cell is. If you guys want to know what a monk cell is, we'll just kind of rabbit trail just for a second. That way you'll see what that is. It's just a little tiny little room. A small living space for a monk, aka a Carthusian hermit, who is or will be a priest. They traditionally were equipped with storage for wood for a stove, workshop, a place for prayer, bed, table for eating meals, a desk for study, a high-walled garden, choir stall, and kneeler for prayer. So that's what a monk cell is. That's where he got that word at. Ernest Haeckel, February 16, 1834 to August 9, 1919, a German biologist, naturalist, philosopher, physician, professor, and artist. He believed in spontaneous generation. Now, if you guys will remember spontaneous generation, that's that belief that they had where if you was to lay out meat, it would eventually produce flies. The flies would come out of the meat, would just spontaneous generate. And so that's what they used to believe, guys. That's what science used to believe. From a limited view of cells that microscopes provided, he believed the cell was a simple little lump of albuminous, like the clear fluid surrounding the yolk of an egg. Combination of carbon, what we would think of it in a way as Jell-O. He just thought it was like just a gel, a gel, something filled with gel. That's about all it was. That's what he thought. Nothing spectacular. Just something simple. Now, quick notes on cells. All living things are composed of cells. Cells are the smallest structures capable of basic life processes, such as taking in nutrients, expelling waste, and reproducing. Estimates range from 220 to hundreds of trillions of cells make up the human body. As the size of an organism decreases, so does the number of cells until reaching the unicellular scale of bacteria and yeast. About 10,000 average-sized human cells can fit on the head of a pin. So they are tiny. Now let's start looking about parts of the cell. Now, guys, I'm just giving you some basic components of it, okay? I'm not really digging in this deep, all right? There are two types of cells. You got eukaryotes. They make up the multicellular and some single-celled like yeast organisms, and have a second membrane which encloses the nucleus of the cell. They also contain a number of organelles, subcellular spaces that are separated from the cytoplasm by their own membranes, much like the rooms of a house. So that's how you would think of it. Each little area has its own walled-in specific area. So that's the way you would think of a house. That's how you would think of a cell. Now, the other type of cell is called prokaryotes. They are unicellular, one cell, and have no nucleus, membrane, or organelle. So they're not separated like the eukaryotes, would be like a house. They're not like that. They're not designed like that. The mass of DNA rests in an area called the nucleoid, which is in the middle of the cytoplasm. All right, let's look at a technology comparison. to a cell. What is it like? What is it like? Is there anything that we have on Earth that we can kind of compare it to get kind of a visual aid on what exactly, how intricate is this thing? So you got the Forge River Rouge plant versus the simple cell. The Forge River Rouge plant versus the simple cell. And this is the Forge River Rouge plant, Dearborn, Michigan. This is an aerial shot of it. And so now I actually got this information, guys, from one of Chuck Missler's presentations that he did called Stem Cells and the Nephilim. Stem Cells and the Nephilim. And so it's just a great presentation, but it really is amazing when you look at the technology that we have and you can kind of compare it to what people call the quote unquote simple cell, the simple cell. Now, construction of the Forge River Rouge plant was from 1917 to 1928. It employed 100,000 workers in the 1930s. 2,000 acres is how big, how much land it covers. 16 million square feet of factory floor space, 90 miles of railroad, miles of conveyor belts. One end of the plant receives raw material, manufactures its own steel, glass, and paint. Automated engine manufacturing line. New cars come out of the other end every few seconds. Every few seconds. Now, let's start talking about this simple cell. This simple cell. You've got the cytoplasm. This is the fluid inside of the cell. It's a gel-like fluid that fills the cell. About 65 to 90% water, transparent and packed with up to 1 billion molecules per cell, which includes enzymes and nutrients like sugars and amino acids. House membrane enclosed organelles. Organelles, that's what we got, organelles. That's the type of stuff, you guys remember that. Then you got the cell membrane. Now, the cell membrane, also known as a lipid bilayer, that is similar to soaps and detergents used in household cleaning. Cell membranes are made up of amphiphilic molecules. Amphiphilic means it loves both. It loves both. Amphiphilic molecules loves two different environments, water and oil. The center is made up of the oily loving part of the molecule, also known as hydrophobic, which is water fearing. That would be the oily part of it. Now, the outside of it there is the non-oily part, and around the end of the molecules are the water-loving part, aka hydrophilic, water-loving. Working together, they form two sheets that close up like a soap bubble. That's about what it's like a soap bubble. Now, the cell membrane is gateways for exchanges, signal receptors, security guards to monitor what goes in and out. So that's that. The nucleus. Let's talk about the nucleus. The inside is filled with nucleoplasm. It's the information center. It's the master library. It contains I'm going to try this, guys. Deoxyribonucleic acid, the DNA. Woo! I did pretty good on that one. Gatekeepers monitor what goes in and out through the nuclear pores. Each pore has molecular signals that flash back and forth as much as 10 times per second. And that's those nuclear pores right there. That's what they would be like. Now, the nucleosis has automated factories, product manufacturing. All right, now let's talk about the mitochondrion. The mitochondrion, and you'll notice I got those circled there on that cell. That's where they're located. They're power plants, energy sources. A typical cell contains about 2,000 and occupy 20% of the cell's volume. In humans, mitochondrial DNA codes for only 37 genes and contains about 16,600 base pairs. In most species, including humans, mitochondrial DNA is only inherited from the mother. is only inherited from the mother. Now, mitochondrial DNA from a bat pancreas cell, and that's what it looks like right here. Mitochondrial DNA was discovered in the 1960s. One human mitochondrion contains 5 to 10 identical circular molecules of DNA. The mitochondrial clock. Evolutionists are most concerned about the effects of a faster mutation rate. For example, researchers have calculated that mitochondrial Eve, the woman whose mitochondrial DNA was ancestral to that in all living people, lived 100,000 to 200,000 years ago in Africa, using the new clock, faster mutation rate than thought before. She would be a mere 6,000 years old. Wow, now that lines more up with the biblical time frame, don't it? Because the Bible, when you look at it, I'm talking about the King James Bible, guys. I'm not talking about these versions that say the days of creation are not literal days, but I'm talking about the Bible, where the days are little 24-hour periods. They put the world and everything only being about 6,000 years old. So how about that? That lines up perfectly with it. Now, Golgi apparatus. Let's talk about that. Processing, packaging, export preparation, shipping. The next one here, vesicles. Now, vesicles are storage, transport, and trash removal. Endoplasmic reticulum. Now, what is that? That is processing proteins. It processes proteins divided into 2 different components, the smoother and the rougher. The rougher gets its rough appearance from the ribosomes that are attached to it. And so this is a picture of that. Those are the ribosomes that are attached to it. Now, the ribosomes are synthesizes unite or produce proteins. That's what they do. And a cell can copy itself, which is called mitosis. In the cells of an adult human body, mitosis occurs about 25 million times per second. Now, Atlas was one of the Titans who attempted to storm heaven and was therefore condemned to bear the vault of heaven, or according to some legends, the earth or his on his shoulders. So that's where if you ever seen that picture right there, that's where that came from. Now, an atlas definition, a collection of maps in a volume, supposed to be so called from a picture of Atlas supporting the globe, prefixed to some collections. The human cell atlas. Now, medical researchers have launched one of the most ambitious mapping projects ever, the Human Cell Atlas. Starting in 2016, this project is expected to require a decade to complete. The Cell Atlas has significant implications for future research and treatment of disorders and diseases from cancer to the common cold. Each cell can be identified by the unique markers, proteins, and carbohydrates on its surface. Labs across the world will map out each cell in each organ. Scientists have long known that there are about 200 different types of cells, but they're starting to realize that these broad types are subdivided into thousands, even hundreds of thousands of different subtypes. Okay, let's stop right there. As you can see, when the deeper you get in, and I just did it just briefly, guys, and I am doing it just briefly. The deeper you get into the cells, it's like a whole new universe. And how these secular scientists, guys, can come up with the conclusion that we came about by pure blind chance, it just baffles me. But it's like the Bible says, professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. And what's a fool? A fool says in their heart that there is no God. And so you guys chew on this stuff. When we come back, we're going to start getting into DNA. But you guys take care. I love you. Hope the Lord blesses you real good. Bye-bye.